What I have here is a 2012 Triumph Bonneville. One of my viewers asked if I could show how to do a sprocket upgrade from an 18-tooth to a 19-tooth. Very common mod. Now, as I say in all my other videos, there's many ways of doing things. I just want to show you how I do it. In order to remove and replace the sprocket, we have to take a lot of tension off the chain. That means loosening the rear tire and moving it forward. In order to do that, we have to take off the silencers. For me, I have to remove my saddlebags, which means taking off the seat. But I've already shown you how to do all that on my other video. I'm going to put a link down at the bottom of the screen on how I do my chain adjustment. And in order for that, all this stuff had to come off. So rather than me showing you again, just watch my video. That's the link at the bottom of the screen. Watch my video on chain adjustment, and it will show you how to remove the silencers, how to loosen your tire in order to adjust the chain, and as well how to tighten your chain again to the proper specifications at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and do all that first, and then we'll get into the sprocket change. Now that we have everything off the bike, the idea now is to loosen the axle bolt and turn the adjusters as much as it takes to get this tire as close to the front as possible in order to give as much slack to the chain to take the front sprocket off. I'm going to zoom the camera in on the engine part in order to show you that. I'm also going to put it up on its center stand because, well, I just happen to like working on the bike on its center stand. Okay, here we are on the right-hand side of the bike. This is the sprocket cover right here. There's 5 bolts holding it on. They're not very tight. They're only torqued down to 9 Newton meters. It shouldn't take much force to get these things off. I'm going to be using a little long extension for my 8mm socket. The only reason I'm using this extension is because the 5th bolt down here is in the way of my foot control. So this way I can still reach this without interfering with this. Take your time on doing these. They're fairly long bolts. As I say, they're not very strong. They're not torqued down very much, so it shouldn't take much to take them down. I'm just cracking open the bolts first, and now I'm just going to take them out by hand. There's not even any blue Loctite on them, and it shouldn't be difficult to take them off at all. The cover should just pop right off. There's no gasket, there's nothing in it, it's just a cover. Now I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to show you the sprocket. So this is a close-up of our front sprocket. You can see that is a 36mm nut, and it is held in place and stopped turning by a washer in behind that has splines in it to keep it from turning. And what they do is they put that washer in first, they put the nut on, tighten it down to 132 Newton meters. It's torqued down quite a bit. Then they simply bend one tab of that washer over to a flat spot, and that prevents the nut from loosening. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide something underneath in between the nut and the washer, and we're going to bend that back up. Now, of course, Triumph recommends that you replace that washer with another one. However, as long as you don't use that same tab again, you have others that you can use and just simply bend another portion down. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start bending that up, and we'll take the nut off. In order to prevent the sprocket from turning while we're trying to take that nut off, I can do several things. For instance, this is a mag wheel bike, so what I could do is I could take a piece of 2x4 or something, wrap a towel around it, and put it underneath the swing arm until a spoke comes up from beneath it and holds it. That will prevent the tire from turning. Plus, I can apply the back brake, and I can even put it in gear. All this will prevent this sprocket from turning while we're trying to get that nut off. Now, we can use a breaker bar. but for me, I'm going to use an air impact wrench. I'm going to use this metal chisel and I'm going to put it in between the nut and the washer, and I'm going to tap it with a hammer and I'm going to bend that back up flat. Now I'm going to take my 36mm socket and my air tool and I'm going to take that nut off. Okay, I'm going to take this 19 and 24mm wrench and I'm going to loosen my axle. Then I'm going to take this 8mm socket and I'll turn my adjusters clockwise in order to move the tire forward, giving me enough slack on the chain in order to pull off the sprocket. With the chain sufficiently slackened, we should be able to just grab this sprocket and push it out. There it is. So here's the stock 18 tooth gear and my new 19 tooth gear. You can see the difference is the stock one has a rubber coating on both sides. It doesn't affect the gearing at all because the middle portion is the part that the nut and the shaft attach to. They don't rest on the rubber at all. The rubber is just mostly used for noise and keep the noise level down. But if you meter them, you'll see that they are about the same thickness, just over 7 mil each. So that's definitely going to fit on the bike, of course. Before we put the new sprocket on, I'm just going to take a little bit of grease and put it on the inside of the sprocket just to help lube it up. Don't need much. And then we put it on the chain. We fit the gear into the chain and put it onto the shaft. We then take our lock washer, just put it in so the lip is facing out. And then the nut recess goes in because it's going to go around the splines. So now we have to torque down the nut to 132 Newton meters. That works out to 97 foot-pounds. I happen to have a nice big torque wrench here set for 97 foot-pounds. The bike is currently on its center stand. You can see that it's in neutral. How I do it is I put a foot on my rear brake and I torque it down that way. I push down on the rear brake. That is 97 foot-pounds. Now we'll go in and we'll bend the lock washer tab down. So you can see this is the part here that was folded down before that we bent up. Now I'm not going to use that part ever again. I'm not even going to use the part right beside it. I'm going to turn it 2 away from it. So I'm going to bend down this one. I'm going to use my chisel, I'm going to put it in behind, and I'm going to tap it with my hammer. Now we can put our cover back on, put back on our 5 bolts, tighten them down to only 9 Newton meters. And I've got myself a tiny little torque wrench set up for 9 Newton meters. Well, that's it. We have our new sprocket put on. Now it's a matter of tensioning up your chain again and making sure your tire is lined up true with the rest of the bike. Again, it's all done on my chain tensioning video. I'll put the link back at the bottom of the page again. I'm going to put everything back on and I'm going to take it for a little test drive because I'm going to test to make sure that my speedometer might have to be adjusted. So I'm going to put this all back together and I'll get right back to you. Okay, there it is. It's all done. The new sprocket is in. I put everything back together. I took it out for a test ride. I think it runs very smooth, although I think I was only able to get it up to about 110 kilometers an hour. It runs very well. My speedometer and my GPS were off, so I hooked up my Tune ECU to it and adjusted it, and now it's bang on. I think I'm going to be very happy with that. So thank you very much. Have a good day.